All right. Hello. I am back in Los Angeles. I know it's been a minute since I've posted one of these podcasts, but it's been an extremely hectic schedule. I think last podcast I said that I was in Los Angeles and then I was going to travel back to Chicago, which I did. And then we went to Notre Dame and had the screening. And then we came back and then I had to work more. And then we flew back. And then this is like the first day where I've actually had a moment to actually record. But anyway, sorry for the absence. And this week I want to talk basically about not only the screening, but also the events in Ukraine that are now surrounding what the movie is about. We've been working on this film, Creative Force, for, almost 2 years. July of 2023 is when we started, and the news about the war and the importance of it faded away, and now it's come back just as we're finishing it, which it's a double-edged sword because on the one hand, obviously we want attention to be on the movie that we have made, but also a lot of awful and terrible things have been happening, not only with that awful press conference that was just weird and cringy, just awful, but just the general way that this current U.S. administration is treating its allies, and seems like we're kowtowing towards all the awful people in the world. So a film like this now is even more important. But before I dive too headlong into that, I just want to talk about the screening and what went on and some of my takeaways for it. So this was a screening at the Kroc Institute in... Let's think back. It was on Tuesday, February the 28th. So I came in a couple of days early. When I flew back to Chicago, Notre Dame was kind enough to rent us a car. My wife and we actually brought our dog along with us, who ironically enough hates the car but loves going places. That's always an interesting adventure whenever we go someplace where we have to drive. And there's some great perks about doing a screening for an institution like Notre Dame. One is that when we went to go rent the car, I'm used to just going and they just give you whatever car you want. And then for whatever reason, they put us in the executive level of car rental, which means when we went to National Car Rental, they said, here's the aisle where all the cars are, just pick one. And I was like, oh, that's something I'd never experienced before. So we picked a compact car because my wife gets a little bit car sick. My dog also gets a little bit car sick. So we picked a compact car that would make sure that everybody was feeling well on the drive. It's about 2 hours to drive to South Bend, Indiana. And when we arrived the next day, we went and screened the film ahead of time just to make sure there was nothing wrong, which there are a couple of minor items that I needed to fix. And then the following evening is when we had the screening. The venue held around 175 people, and it was about 3/4 full, so probably over 100 people were there to watch the film. Now, this was the shorter 60-minute version of the film. We're still working on the 90-minute version, but we at least wanted to give people not only a taste of what the full-length film would look like, but also to leave room for a Q&A. One of the things that Alex LeMay, the director, and I had talked about is not overwhelming people too much and also having some subjects to speak about. And we felt as though if we showed the 90-minute version and then tried to have an in-depth discussion afterwards, that would just be way too much. So we decided pretty early on to make a 60-minute version because at least that's screenable along with something else. And for this, the Kroc Institute is an institute that studies international politics. This left room after the 60-minute version of the film to talk about the state of not only Ukraine, but just international politics in the world in general. So we showed the film. From my end, no technical glitches, so that was great to see. As an editor, you're lost in it, and you always hope when you screen something that nothing terrible happens and no weird glitches or something that you forgot or something that you thought was normal that you see on a smaller screen. looks awful on a big screen, so that was good. Actually, the day before, we had to mess around with the projector a little bit because I did the color and the sound mix, and it sounded fine, but the color was way too saturated on the projector screen, but on the television screen behind, it looked normal. So we had to mess around with the projector screen and turn the saturation down a little bit and also turn up some of the brightness because a lot of the shadows were just way too dark. So it looked great. And then after the screening was over, because we did not arrange the event and didn't really have a lot of say in the planning of it, unfortunately, there was an intermission. Now, here's the thing that happens whenever there is a break after you've seen a movie. Some of your audience is going to leave. And that's what happened to us. Like, not all of the audience, but I would say like it was about 3/4 full. I'd say maybe a quarter of those people left. I think a lot of them were students and they were taking notes probably for a class or something. So they got up and left. And then we had a very nice Q&A discussion about not only what's happening in Ukraine, but just what's happening in politics right now, what's happening overseas, and what we can do about it in order to give more support to Ukraine. This was an audience of mostly locals in South Bend, so I don't think there were very many Ukrainians in attendance. There were some Eastern Europeans in attendance, but it was heartening to see that people actually do still care about this issue and were willing to engage in discussion. One of the things that I took away from this screening was that it's more important now than ever to create screenings where your audience can be involved. Like a lot of the screenings that I go to, especially after you watch like an hour and a half movie, usually the Q&A is about 5 to 10 minutes. The director comes on and the host asks them about their film and how they made it, and then that's pretty much it. Or if there are questions with an audience, they are entirely film related. This screening was one that was related to the subject matter, which I think is applicable to more than just an issue doc. There are themes inside of your movie that you can discuss and talk about, and having that makes the audience more comfortable in asking questions. Obviously, some people want to know about the film process and the film industry, but more often than not, your audience doesn't really want to speak about it because they don't know a lot about it. They don't feel comfortable talking about it, so they're just not going to ask any questions. But if you have a general topic that you're speaking of, like the theme of your movie, what's important about it, then it's more of a dialogue and a conversation with the audience, which is what you want. I think a lot of times, especially having worked in Hollywood for so long, you tend to think a little insular. You think that what you're doing is so important that the screening is there for you. It's there to make you feel better, but the screening is really an opportunity to show your work and connect with a group of people around the experience that you just had. So I think as you're doing your screenings, think about what else you can bring to it. I saw a note on Substack where somebody mentioned like having a therapist come and lead a discussion, which actually I've went to a screening last year called Free to Be where a therapist did lead the discussion about race and identity, which was a very wonderful discussion where the audience also got involved. Doing these types of screenings where there's something that the audience can have their own expertise and their opinion, and they're not just getting a lecture from some quote-unquote experts about film, leads to a better environment. And another thing that I want to mention is because you have a captive audience, you can also lead them to other things. After people watched the film, and a lot of people really liked it, they wanted to know, where can I see the rest of it? Where can I see it again? And where can I learn more? So because we have website, newsletter, I told them to go there. Remember, as you're doing your screenings, it's not just a way for you to talk with people one-on-one or in a group, but it's also a way to build a fan collective. So have a website, have your newsletter. I don't know if anybody actually signed up, and something that Alex and I were talking about, which was for future screenings that we're going to do, which we're talking about maybe doing some more in the Midwest, trying to reach out to the Ukrainian Cultural Center in Chicago because there's a large Ukrainian community in Chicago. We have an area called the Ukrainian village which exists for obvious reasons, and maybe some here in California. And we want to see if we can have people sign in and give their email address when they come sign in, so that way we don't have to give them the sales pitch and beg for it. When people ask, where can I learn more, we can just say, the reason why we took your email address in the beginning is because we can let you know more about the film. So there's that. Now, we have not been very active on social media as far as our film goes, which is actually something that I've been pushing for, and I think we're going to do more because of everything that's happening in the news in regards to Ukraine. There's a lot of disinformation that's out there, and I think that this is an opportunity for us not just to talk about our film, because I think that would be a mistake. If we were just to go out there and say, come see our film and learn the truth about Ukraine, I think that would come off as very tone deaf and inappropriate. I think what we are looking into doing is really an information campaign showing, okay, what's actually happening, because the crew that shot it and partially produced it is still there. So asking them, hey, what's going on? What's the truth? And then just presenting that and presenting what's happening in the news and just giving people a better perspective on not only what's happening with the war, but also the history and the culture of that region. I think that's going to be very important to do, and we're putting together a plan about that as we try to get more screenings and obviously finish the movie. That's kind of step 1A and 1B for our next steps, which is finish the movie, start spreading more information about it, start doing screenings will be step 2, and getting our film festival run together will be step 3. If anybody does want to know more about it, the website is ukrmovie.com, and you can go ahead and sign up for the newsletter. We're probably going to be redoing that website in the next few weeks or so, just to bring it up to date, because it's just got the bare bones minimum on there right now. When you go to screenings like that, it makes you excited to keep working. I wasn't able to take the drive with me, and honestly, I was probably too busy to work on it. But I did start getting ideas as I was watching it of, oh, I could change this and I can move that around. And for the 90-minute, I can do this. Maybe I could try that. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to do that since I've been back, but I'm hoping to be able to do some more of that tomorrow and into next week to get the film finished even faster, because I'm looking at the list of pending projects that I have between Concrete River, and there's another doc that's come on board, and I have this documentary about a musician that's beaten cancer and a couple of other features. They're all just starting to pile up. So if I can at least get one checked off where I don't have to sit in front of a computer and edit it, I can start paying attention to the other ones and start to get some more things off of my plate. And because I don't want to let this momentum go to waste, I think the worst thing that I could do is just start getting busy, and then the film gets put on the back burner, and then something else happens, and we're not there to help support the people that put their lives aligned to make the movie. And I think that's also something that we want to do, is eventually have this film premiere, or at least have one of its main screenings in Lviv, where the crew is, because they worked on it. They've sacrificed a lot for it. They're still there. They're still under the threat of Russian aggression and potential occupation. So just having their voice and their experience be reflected will be very important. That's also, I think, what the social media campaign is about, is having their voices reflected and heard. So that's what's happening right now. I think some of the main takeaways that I would like to leave you with is just keep thinking of your screenings as what you can give to the audience, as opposed to how much they like the movie. The movie is an opportunity to open up for a bigger conversation outside of your film festival. The film festival screening is more so for the filmmaker, and outside the film screening is for the audience. That's the way that I look at it. So think of how you can tailor your screening outside of a film festival for your audience. So I am going to be working on more stuff for Creative Force, the Ukraine documentary. I'm back in Los Angeles, where it's raining right now as I record this, so hopefully you won't hear it. And it is also cold. And for those of you who live outside of Los Angeles or California, you might be thinking like, oh, it's cold, so what? We have snow. But here is the difference between living in Los Angeles when it's cold and living where there are seasons. There is a thing that exists in places with snow that we don't have, and it's called insulation. For whatever reason, when they built a lot of these structures and houses, they decided not to insulate a lot of them. So it's like you're camping outside, but you're in your house. When it's cold outside, especially in the house that I rent, only one part of it recently got insulated. It just amplifies whatever the temperature is. So if it's cold outside, it's colder in the house. And when it's hot outside, it's hotter in the house. So this is why when people move to Los Angeles and they're from cold places, you see them like dressing up when it's like 50 degrees. That's why, because they've been stuck in their house all day with no insulation. And a lot of times we don't have central heat. There's just like one little heat box in a room that we have to turn on. So yeah, we're cold all day. That's the problem. We don't get a chance to go inside and warm up like I do in Chicago. I just go inside. I have to put on layers to be warm and then go outside and keep on the same layers because it's not really that much better. So yeah, that's enough for me complaining about why it's cold in Los Angeles. But let me just leave you with this. I think what's been happening in the news, not only with Ukraine, but just in politics in general, just lets me know that us creatives and filmmakers have to be more mindful and diligent about what we put out there and connecting with our audiences more and really building actual community. I think we've been thinking of community in more of an exploitative sense of how can we gather a bunch of people around and get them to support us, but it's more so how can we support each other. Like we're making a movie, we have a film, and the way that we are using that is a way to foster dialogue, change in the way of maybe getting in the hands of some politicians and maybe having them actually be a voice in support of the people who are over there fighting, bringing more awareness. Think about how you can use the work that you're doing to help as opposed to what you're going to get out of it. Now, obviously, we have to pay our bills and feed ourselves, so I'm not advocating that anybody works for free, but think about how you can have a relationship with the people that are putting on the screenings, with the people that are participating in them, as opposed to what you get. So that's it. I'm going to try to get back into the habit of doing these weekly since now that I'm back in Los Angeles and I don't have to futz around with putting on lavalier microphones and messing with all that stuff. So I will speak to everybody next week.